From players sabotaging each other on the green to heated on-course incidents that turned into chaos. These are the most disrespectful moments in Ryder Cup history. 20,000 screaming American fans, a hostile crowd that had been heckling him all day. Someone had already been ejected for shouting crude comments. The atmosphere at Hazeltine National Golf Club was absolutely toxic. And then Rory McIlroy stepped up to a 20-foot eagle putt on the 16th green. The Northern Irishman had been taking abuse from the Minnesota crowd for hours. Every shot, every hole, the jeers kept getting louder and nastier. Europe was desperate after getting whitewashed 4-0 in the morning session. They were desperate. McIlroy was partnered with rookie Thomas Pieters, trying to salvage something from what looked like a disaster. Dustin Johnson and Matt Kuchar were right there, America's golden boys ready to put the nail in the coffin. But this was Europe's chance to fight back. McIlroy lined up the downhill slider. The crowd fell silent, waiting. The ball rolled and dropped into the cup for eagle. Match over. Europe gets a point. What happened next stunned everyone watching. McIlroy turned to face the hostile American gallery, pumped his fists in the air, and delivered not one but two theatrical bows, like he was taking a curtain call at Carnegie Hall. Then he screamed, "Come on!" and punched the Minnesota air with pure defiance. McIlroy later admitted he'd planned the whole thing. "Even before I hit that putt, I wanted to put an exclamation point on that session for us. I honestly actually thought about the celebration before I hit the putt," he said. Now we're in Scotland, 2014. Glen Eagles Golf Club is buzzing with hostile energy. The European crowd is absolutely relentless. They've been waiting for this moment, the Ryder Cup on home soil, and they're making sure every American player knows exactly where they stand. Then there's this 24-year-old rookie from Texas, Patrick Reed. Nobody really knows who he is yet. He's paired with Jordan Spieth, another young gun, but Reed, he's the wild card, the unknown quantity. But this kid has something different about him. Where other players might shrink under the pressure of thousands of screaming Scottish fans, Reed seems to be feeding off it. On the first tee, a fan yells, "Did you practice your putting, Patrick?" before his singles match against Henrik Stenson, alluding to a short putt Reed had missed the day before. The heckling gets worse as the match progresses. They're on his case constantly, booing his shots, trying to get under his skin any way they can. And then it happens. On the 7th hole, Reed immediately followed Stenson's made 10-foot birdie putt with a shorter one of his own. And Reed quickly put his index finger to his lips in a gesture intended to shush a Scottish audience ready to roar in 2014. The crowd went absolutely ballistic. Of course, it only provoked offended European fans to boo lustily. But Reed didn't care. He just told an entire nation of golf fans to shut up. On their home turf, in their biggest tournament. Oh, and I almost forgot. He went on to beat Stenson 1-up, becoming the only unbeaten American player at Glen Eagles. Next up, well, some things you just don't do. You don't criticize your teammates. You don't air dirty laundry in public. And you definitely don't stab someone in the back when they're fighting for the team. But apparently nobody told Nick Faldo the rules. Here's a guy sitting comfortably in a broadcast booth, safe behind a microphone. No pressure, no stress, just commenting on the action while other people do the hard work. He's watching Europe battle back from a tough morning at Glen Eagles. Sergio Garcia just saved a crucial half point with Rory McIlroy. The momentum is shifting. That's when Faldo decided to drop a bomb. The host mentions Garcia's amazing Ryder Cup record. When asked if the 2008 Ryder Cup still hurt, he went for the throat, saying he was useless. Half a point, bad attitude. Anyway, we move on 6 years later. Wait, what? Did Europe's former captain just call his own player useless on live TV during an active Ryder Cup while Garcia was out there fighting for points? The European team room exploded when word got back. Players were furious. Ian Poulter couldn't believe it. He said that the guys are fuming. I'm shocked that he has said it. It's a cheap shot, and it's the worst possible timing. Turns out that Faldo was the captain who lost that 2008 Ryder Cup, the only European captain to lose since 1999. And now he was blaming his players for his own failure. Coming in next. Sometimes the worst kind of trash talk comes from the gallery. Some random guy who thinks he knows better than the pros, who shouts advice from the cheap seats, who runs his mouth about how easy the game looks. But what happens when that guy gets called on it? Thursday, Hazeltine. 2016 again on this list. Andy Sullivan and Rory McIlroy are struggling with a 12-foot putt on the 6th green, missing it over and over. Professional golfers, the best in the world, and they can't figure out this one putt. That's when some loudmouth from North Dakota starts running his mouth. David Johnson, an insurance agent from tiny Mayville, starts heckling from the gallery. He's telling everyone within earshot that he could make that putt himself. Most players ignore hecklers. They've heard it all before. But Henrik Stenson, he's had enough. The Iceman locks eyes with Johnson and issues a challenge that no fan ever expects to hear. You think you can make it? Let's see it. The crowd goes crazy. Suddenly, Johnson's being pulled out of the gallery and onto the green. Then, Justin Rose walks over and drops a crisp $100 bill right next to the ball. Make this, and it's yours. Johnson's heart is pounding. He complains about the putter being too short, asks Stenson for a read. But the Iceman just laughs and tells him, "No way. You said you could make it, so do it." So, Johnson takes his stance. The crowd goes silent. He pulls back the putter and rams it straight into the back of the cup. The place explodes. Johnson's pumping his fists like he just won the Masters. He's hugging Rory McIlroy. The pros are shaking their heads in disbelief. Some random guy from North Dakota just showed up 3 Ryder Cup players on their practice green for $100 and made it look easy. Now it's time for a very problematic relationship. Once upon a time, there were 2 guys who absolutely hated each other. Welcome to 1957. Lindrick Golf Club in Yorkshire, and the guys were Eric Brown and Tommy Bolt. Thunderbolt was living up to his nickname, famous for breaking clubs and throwing tantrums. Brown was equally intense, but in a different way. Cold, calculated, and absolutely ruthless. The match starts and Brown jumps out to a 3-up lead. That's when Bolt decides to get creative with his gamesmanship. He starts playing incredibly slow, taking forever over every shot, standing over putts for what feels like hours. Brown knows exactly what's happening. This is sabotage. So he whispers something to his caddy, who takes off running toward the clubhouse. Then he comes back with a folding chair. Brown sets up the chair right there on the course. Every time Bolt takes his sweet time, Brown sits down, crosses his legs, makes himself comfortable, like he's watching a movie instead of playing the biggest golf tournament of his life. He wins 4 and 3 at the end of it. There was no handshake, no respect. Just pure, calculated disrespect that helped Britain win their first Ryder Cup in over 2 decades. Next up, golf is supposed to be a gentleman's game. Quiet respect for officials. Polite disagreements when things don't go your way. Say please and thank you, even when you're frustrated. But Brooks Koepka wasn't really in the mood that day. 2021 Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits. Brooks Koepka and Daniel Berger are 1 down to Sergio Garcia and Jon Rahm. The Americans need points badly. Every shot matters. Then, Berger's drive on the 15th hole finds the worst possible spot. Long fescue grass right next to a bunker. But that's not the problem. The real issue is what's lurking underneath. A drainage area that Brooks claims will interfere with his swing. Now, here's the thing about Brooks Koepka. This guy had just injured his wrist a few weeks earlier when his club hit a tree root at the Tour Championship. He had to withdraw from that tournament and barely made it back in time for the Ryder Cup. His wrist is still fragile. So, when rules official David Price comes over and takes a look, Brooks starts pleading his case. He's pointing at the drain, explaining how his club will hit it on the way down. "You don't think my club might hit right there?" he asks. "Have you ever seen me hit a ball?" Price doesn't buy it. No free relief. Brooks asks for a second opinion. Another 10 minutes of waiting and discussion. Mark Litton from the European Tour comes over, takes another look, and backs up the original ruling. That's when Brooks snaps. He points directly at both officials and delivers the line. "If I break my wrist, it's on both of you." The best part of this moment is that Brooks went ahead and hit a perfect shot onto the green anyway. No broken wrist, no drama. Just a clean strike that made all his complaining look ridiculous. All right, on to the next. When players aren't losing composure at the Ryder Cup, look to the crowd for trouble. A little trash talk is part of sports. But what happened at Brookline in 1999 wasn't banter. It was vicious cruelty beyond anything golf had seen. At the country club in Brookline, Massachusetts, America trailed 10-6 heading into Sunday singles, needing a miracle comeback. The massive pressure somehow transformed a golf gallery into something resembling a mob. Colin Montgomerie became their favorite target. The emotional Scottish star nicknamed Rabbit Ears because he heard everything, and they gave him an earful. The heckling started early and escalated. Fans shouted, "Mrs. Doubtfire," mocking his appearance and weight. They yelled crude comments during his backswing, calling him names so vile, Montgomery later said they were too coarse to repeat. Worse, they attacked his family. Personal comments about his wife, children, and private life that had nothing to do with golf. It got so bad that Colin's father, James, left the course entirely. Even Payne Stewart, Montgomery's opponent, was disgusted. The gentlemanly American repeatedly intervened, telling the crowd to back off. After America clinched the cup and their match ended, Stewart conceded the 18th hole so Montgomery wouldn't endure one more hole of abuse. Next, there's trash talk, and then there's psychological warfare. Seve Ballesteros didn't just play golf. He played with people's heads. And nobody did it better. It was the 1987 Ryder Cup at Muirfield Village. The Europeans are trying to do something that's never been done before, win on American soil. The pressure is massive. Every hole matters. Every shot matters. First hole of the match. Seve and Jose Maria Olazabal are facing Curtis Strange and Tom Kite. Strange has a tricky downhill putt and runs it past the hole. Here, when you miss a putt long, you have what's called a through line. That's the path your ball might take if your next putt goes too far. Players protect that line because any scuff or footprint could throw off their next shot. Olazabal putts and wants to finish out quickly, but Strange stops him. "Wait a minute," he says. "You're right on my through line." That's when Seve pounces. He comes charging up like a bull seeing red, and he gets right in Strange's face with 3 simple words that somehow sound like a threat. "That bother you?" Strange says yes, it does bother him. Oh my, the tension. But Steve didn't just talk the talk. He stomps over to his chip shot, still fuming, takes one look at the hole, and then chips it straight into the back of the cup like he's throwing a dart. The ball disappears. Seve pumps his fist right at Strange, walks off the green like he owns the place. His message was crystal clear. Try stopping me now. Seve and Olazabal won that match 2-1, and Europe won the Ryder Cup for the first time ever on American soil. Coming in next. Every Ryder Cup reveals something about character, how players handle pressure, how they treat opponents, how they respect the traditions of the game. And sometimes those revelations aren't pretty. This is the 2008 Ryder Cup at Valhalla. The Americans are down badly and desperate for points. Anthony Kim is just 23 years old, a hotshot rookie making his Ryder Cup debut. Sergio Garcia is already a seasoned veteran with multiple Ryder Cup appearances under his belt. Sunday singles, 6th hole. Garcia's drive finds trouble down the right side. Thick, gnarly grass that looks like it hasn't been cut all season. When he gets to his ball, there's another problem. Stone steps right behind where he needs to stand. So Garcia does what any smart player would do. He calls over the rules official. He's not trying to cheat or get some unfair advantage. He's just asking if those stone steps interfere with his stance enough to get relief. That's basic golf rules stuff that happens every week on tour. While Garcia is having a perfectly reasonable discussion with European Tour official John Paramore, Kim decides to stick his nose in. The rookie walks over, clearly annoyed that this is taking so long. And what does he do? Well, just ask if he calls that a normal stance. Yeah, here's a 23-year-old kid basically calling out a Ryder Cup veteran in front of thousands of people, questioning his integrity, suggesting Garcia is trying to pull a fast one. Garcia looks at him like he can't believe what he just heard. Kim tries to play it off, but the damage is done. And now, before we get into whatever chaos the next Ryder Cup might bring this year, let's rewind to 1999. One moment there changed everything. A single putt turned into a disgraceful scene, all sparked by one American player. The Battle of Brookline, the way they called it. It was Sunday, September 26th. America was down 10-6 and needed a miracle. Europe just needed 4 points to retain the cup. It should have been over. But the Americans came roaring back, winning match after match. The impossible was happening. And it all came down to 2 matches still on the course. Colin Montgomery against Payne Stewart, and this other guy facing Jose Maria Olazabal. Justin Leonard was getting destroyed, 4 down with 7 holes to play. The Spanish veteran was cruising toward victory, but then Leonard caught fire. He holed a 40-footer at the 15th to cut the lead, made it to the 17th hole all square. That's when Leonard faced the putt of his life. 45 feet, uphill, everything on the line. The ball rolled up the slope and disappeared into the cup. Leonard was one up with 1 to play. America was about to complete the greatest comeback in Ryder Cup history. But here's the problem. Olazabal still had a 22-foot putt to tie the hole and keep Europe's hopes alive. That didn't stop the Americans from losing their minds. Players, wives, caddies, Captain Ben Crenshaw, Tom Lehman leading the charge, Phil Mickelson celebrating with his wife, Tiger Woods leaping in the air. Olazabal stood there watching this circus, knowing he still had to make the most important putt of his career with all this madness swirling around him. When order was finally restored, the damage was done. Olazabal missed. America won the cup, by far the most disrespectful moment in Ryder Cup history, and it wasn't even close. Up next, they were supposed to be the future of American Ryder Cup golf. Two young stars who had built a 4-1-2 record together, becoming the faces of USA's resurgence. Fans loved them. Captains trusted them. They seemed destined to dominate for a decade. Then came Paris 2018, and everything exploded in the most public way possible. Captain Jim Furyk made a decision that would haunt American golf. He split up the proven partnership. Patrick Reed and Jordan Spieth, America's most successful Ryder Cup duo, were separated for the first time. Spieth was paired with rising star Justin Thomas. Reed was left to struggle alongside Tiger Woods, who was still finding his competitive form after years of personal and physical struggles. The chemistry was immediately toxic. The Tiger pairing lost both their matches, looking uncomfortable and out of sync. Meanwhile, the other duo thrived, winning points and appearing natural together. As Europe built a commanding lead toward a humiliating 17.5 to 10.5 defeat, frustration was written all over Reed's face. After the crushing loss, Patrick Reed could have taken the diplomatic route. Instead, he chose scorched earth. In a New York Times interview, Reed publicly destroyed both his former partner and his captain. The issue's obviously with Jordan not wanting to play with me. The captain put me with Tiger, and that didn't work out. The comments were devastating. Reed had essentially accused Spieth of abandoning him and blamed Furyk for catastrophic leadership. But worse, he aired the team's dirty laundry in America's newspaper of record while the wounds from defeat were still fresh. Alright, imagine sitting in a press conference watching one of your own players systematically destroy your reputation on live television while you sit helplessly just 3 feet away. Welcome to Tom Watson's nightmare at Glen Eagles, September 28, 2014. The setup was already toxic. Europe had just demolished the United States 16.5 to 11.5, continuing America's humiliating streak of European dominance. Watson, brought back at age 65 to recapture the magic of his 1993 victory, had been criticized all week for his old-school approach and poor communication. But the real explosion had started the night before. In Saturday's team meeting, Watson took no responsibility for the team's struggles, scoffed at a gift the players had given him, and began the session by tearing into his own players' performance. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Phil Mickelson, benched for an entire session for the first time in 10 Ryder Cup appearances, was seething. 24 hours later, the entire U.S. team sat on the losers' press conference podium. 8 questions had been asked when a reporter innocently asked about what had worked for America in 2008 versus recent failures. Phil lit the fuse. There were 2 things that Paul Azinger did in 2008. Mickelson began, methodically dismantling Watson's leadership. He got everybody invested in the process, invested in who they were going to play with, who the picks were going to be. When pressed about whether players had input this week, Phil delivered the nuclear option. No, nobody here was in any decision. The fallout was immediate. The criticism led directly to the creation of the Ryder Cup Task Force and eventually helped the U.S. win at Hazeltine in 2016.